redistribution. And just to let you know, on Tuesday of week 6, we're going to focus on the cardiovascular side of things and the changes that occur with exercise. And on Thursday, we're going to focus on the respiratory changes and how we're able to that allow us to exercise. So here are the two objectives we're trying to accomplish with this short video. So blood distribution, and then concepts called exercise hyperemia and something called functional sympatholysis. Okay, now we can increase blood flow to our active muscle to be about 3 liters per minute per kilogram of muscle. Okay, a typical 70 kilogram individual, so someone that weighs about 160 pounds, somewhere in there, they would have 30 kilograms. All right, so just to provide blood flow maximally to all muscles would require 90 liters a minute. Okay, 90 liters a minute. Remember the other day in class, I had, I think, 5 gallons. I think that's what we dumped in to one of those buckets. This would require 18 gallons in a minute. Okay, that would be very difficult to do for us, let alone your heart. So can't happen. And so what we need to do is we need to figure out a way to kind of redistribute blood flow so it can go where it needs to go. Now, obviously, we're not going to be able to send maximum blood flow to every muscle in the body at the same time because my cardiac output is not able to meet that demand. So I want you to look at this picture here, and I want you to look at how blood flow distribution changes, and I know that we've talked about this before, going from rest to exercise. Okay, now notice that on this figure, excuse me, we've got a bunch of different classifications. Now, notice exercise intensity here on the x-axis. We've got blood flow in liters per minute on the y-axis. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense as to why we're going up. More exercise or higher the intensity, the more blood flow I need. Okay, and so we're going from about 5 up to 25. But notice how each of these bars changes in shape. Okay, so we've got splanchnic, think intestines, we've got kidneys, we've got skin, we've got the brain. Okay, so these first 3, kidneys, skin, and splanchnic, I'm going to give them a negative, meaning blood flow goes down. Okay, actually I'm going to draw an arrow that goes down. So there we go. The brain stays relatively constant, but then notice what happens to the coronary vessels. They increase blood flow, and then muscles really increase blood flow. All right, why is this? Why do we decrease most of it, but we increase our heart and our muscle? And the answer should be pretty straightforward in that I need my heart to work harder so I can deliver more oxygen to my muscles, which are working harder. That's why that goes up. But we do a good job of maintaining blood flow to our brain, and all the other areas we decrease. Now, there are times where some of these variables or some of these values will change, especially with the skin, and we'll talk about that later on in the semester. Okay? So, how does this happen? Well, this occurs via something called exercise hyperemia. Okay, like we've said and shown, and it should be relatively obvious. If I'm exercising, my skeletal muscles need more, and so we need to increase blood flow to them. This is called exercise hyperemia. Remember last week, I think it was, we talked about intrinsic and extrinsic control. Well, we've got local control of the blood vessels, and this occurs from vasodilators being released. Skeletal muscle will dilate on its own when any or all of the following occur. So if we've got high levels of ATP, potassium, hydrogen ion, carbon dioxide, or we have decreased oxygen, that will cause the blood vessels in the muscle to dilate. That allows for more blood flow, which allows for more oxygen. The endothelium, okay, so kind of the inside of the blood vessels, they release nitric oxide. Okay, and when that happens, or some things called prostaglandins, when either of those are released, that also causes vasodilation. This is important because that vasodilation allows for blood flow to our skeletal muscle. Okay, this doesn't happen in the splanchnic region, in the kidneys, that sort of thing, because well, they're not going to have high levels of ATP or high levels of CO2 or decreased oxygen because they're not working any harder during exercise. Now, remember, with exercise, this is a sympathetic response, a fight or flight response. One of the responses, or one of the things that occurs with that, is vasoconstriction. It's a global vasoconstriction. That's not going to help get blood flow to my active muscle, okay, because that means increased pressure. And so we have this process that coincides with exercise hyperemia that's called functional sympatholysis. Basically what it is, it's the breakdown, that's the lysis, of the sympathetic effects. Okay, essentially what's happening is the skeletal muscle is saying, yeah, we're not going to listen to you. Okay, so it's the rebellious teenager. It's like, I know what's best for me. And in this case, the active muscle does know what's best. And so it overrides that. And this is because of those molecules that are being released from the muscle and the endothelium, right? Like the things that we were talking about before, increased CO2, decreased oxygen, increased nitric oxide. And really what it does is it reduces sensitivity to adrenergic receptors. In other words, it takes more to activate them to cause a vasoconstriction. And so as a result, blood flow is redistributed. And so this allows blood flow to go where we need it during exercise, specifically the heart and the muscle. We don't need it to go anywhere else, right? We're maintaining blood flow to the brain, we're increasing it to the heart and the muscle, and we're decreasing it everywhere else. And we do this by increasing arterial pressure, okay? And then we vasodilate blood flow to our muscle, okay? And then vasoconstrict everywhere else. And I think that's what I just said there. So this is just kind of a recap. So we increase that sympathetic activity, which causes vasoconstriction everywhere, but we prevent that vasoconstriction from occurring in the active muscle through functional sympatholysis.